Good Thursday to you. Hope you're doing well out there. Um, let's talk about MeToo for a minute. In light of Judge Kavanaugh and everything that's happened there. For those who don't know, MeToo, hashtag MeToo, the movement where exposing, sexual misconduct and so forth. It's kind of the cultural phenomenon that's happened really with Harvey Weinstein and now others after. And then Brett Kavanaugh, of course, a Supreme Court nominee, been accused of misconduct by a former classmate. That's being talked about, whatever. He's flatly denied it. Some that know them have denied it. Some have said it didn't happen, and some have said that they remember hearing about it when they were in school. I don't know. It'll sort itself out with whatever it is. But and last I heard, I just saw a news report that came up that said that Miss Blasey Ford, the accuser, who had originally refused to come to the Senate to testify, is now trying to negotiate terms by which to come out and testify. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But I want to talk about the Kavanaugh thing just in regards to the Me Too movement. Now, on the face of it, the Me Too movement is a good thing, right? Harvey Weinstein using his power to apparently, allegedly, sexually take advantage of or assault dozens upon dozens of women. Castigated. He should be shamed. He should go to jail for anything that's within the statute of limitations. Hopefully that will sort itself out. I know New York is doing their own investigation and seeking out whatever they could do there. Others like, Bill Cosby, if he, was guilty of drugging and lacing drinks and whatnot, should be account for. It should be account for anybody who does this, okay? But that's not my issue with the Me Too movement. All of that is fine on the surface. The problem with the Me Too movement is it's a mob rule movement that does not care, really. I mean, a lot of them do not care whether the allegations are real or not, whether they're true or not. You take Chris Hardwick, for example, Nerdist Industries. He does a podcast. He hosts a talk show after The Walking Dead. You've probably seen him if you don't recognize the name. But several months ago, an ex-girlfriend came out in the midst of the Me Too stuff and lambasted him, said he was abusive during the relationship, all this kind of stuff. He came out, of course, flatly denied it, said it wasn't true. His now wife said, based on the man that I know and the character of him that I know, I don't believe it. Other friends of his came out and said, not true, yada, yada, yada. But those who are devotees of the Me Too movement, they were not as kind or as defensive. A lot of them came out and stated flatly, in this situation, stated flatly for every situation, that if basically a woman comes forth and says, Mr. XYZ over here has sexually assaulted me, they are to be believed on face value, period, end of conversation. No due process, no nothing. Even if it's false and it ruins the man's career, a lot of the feminist anti-patriarchy folks are going to say, doesn't matter. Because you got to break a few eggs to make mayonnaise, right? So it doesn't really matter. That this is an assault on their character and an assault on their future and livelihood. It's irrelevant. Tavis Smiley, another good example. Long-running talk show on PBS. Been involved with PBS and doing this talk show for a very long time. Former associate or worker on the show came out and said that he was abusing her, using his power to solicit sex from her. He came out and said, yes, I have had sex with a woman, but it was purely consensual. We were in a relationship. So what did PBS do? They got rid of Tavis Smiley. No evidence, no investigation, no nothing. They just said, okay, well, you've got to go now because somebody has accused you of misconduct and you've now got to leave. No, sit down until we investigate this thing and make sure that it's legitimate and right. No, you've got to go now because you've been accused. Just a mere accusation enough to damage someone's character and livelihood. That's the problem with the MeToo movement. Fast forward to today, Norm Macdonald, fantastic comedian, one of my top 3 comedians of all time, by far. He was going to go on the Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show to talk about or promote his new show that he's got on Netflix. And he had given an interview with some magazine, I can't remember which one it was, but they brought up the Me Too stuff in the course of the conversation. And his remarks were very similar to mine. He was glad that the Me Too movement had kind of hit the brakes because of these examples of people being castigated and thrown out for no other reason than either an accusation or a mistake. He cited Roseanne Barr as being one of those. Now, that's not in the Me Too realm, but, you know, she said her thing on Twitter, and, I mean, her career's pretty much been completely ruined now. All because of some tweet. Was the tweet wrong? Absolutely. Was it stupid? Absolutely. But is it worth, you know, completely losing your livelihood over some dumb tweet? No, it's not. But there is no mercy. You see, there is no mercy in the Me Too movement. There is no need for validation or proof or evidence. All we need is an accusation. Let mercy be damned. We're going to crucify now. That's kind of what has happened. So I agree with Norm Macdonald. I'm glad the Me Too movement has hit brakes. Not that I want the Me Too movement to go away. I don't. What I want the Me Too movement to do is to, one, get rid of some of the poster children they've got. Asia Argento, who has now been accused of basically using her position to have sex with an underage guy, even though she's up making allegations against others. Rose McGowan. All of these persons are in it for themselves, for the publicity. They found something they could hitch their wagon onto to get some notoriety, and that's what they've done. Can you fault them for it being in Hollywood? No, you can't necessarily. But do they need to be running a movement that is supposed to be about just equality for women and ridding Hollywood and other industries that are plagued with sexual misconduct? No, they certainly do not need to be the poster child of such a movement. So they need to get rid of them, and then they need to rebuild themselves, but in a just way that actually is intending to rid industry and morality of these kinds of things equitably, fairly, and in due process. If they can achieve that, then they'll have support not only of myself, but of a lot of people. And this is not just me speaking. There are plenty of level-headed persons, both men and women, who have said the very same thing and who are able to look at it logically and say, this movement, you know, I kind of agree with it in the beginning because they were toppling people like Harvey Weinstein, people have known about it, yada, yada, yada. But now it's getting out of hand. And lots of folks are starting to wake up and see that. So hopefully that'll happen. We shall see.